Yes, people, welcome back to Spurs Kings TV. I wanted to react to the Villareal result yesterday, and I noted some things when I was watching the game, and I don't think it was understood. So I wanted to kind of break down what I saw, and I want to introduce the tactics board straight away. And I spoke about this dynamic with Spence and Xavi. And I noticed that teams last week and the week before were forcing us down the left hand side. When the Van der Ven gets the ball, what he tends to do is go long into Xavi. And Xavi, for me, is not the profile that runs in behind and gets those type of balls when Mickey Van der Ven gets on the ball, right? The issue here is people are saying that Spence is right footed and he wants to drive into these spaces here. And Xavi also wants to drive into these spaces here. When really you need a player that overlaps. Udogi came on and I still saw the same issue, in my opinion, even though Udogi was left footed. I personally think it's because when teams press us, Xavi's back is to the defender and he's not at an angle to receive a pass like so. So he's not at an angle where he can receive a diagonal pass where Spence has a right foot, he can find him in that area. And also, Sarr, in my opinion, needs to come over and create a mini triangle. So he can vacate here, and that is a mini triangle, as you can see there. So we've got an option of a person doing that as well. And then he can bounce a pass back into Xavi Simmons, and then Simmons can go on a run. And that's how we beat that press. That never happened not once from what I saw. So equally, we could have Saar, in my opinion, not doing that. We could have Spence bouncing that pass into Xavi, and then Spence goes down the line, and then Xavi is the one that throws that pass back to Spence. As that ball comes into him, he bounces it back to him, and then Spence gets that byline. Richarlison has to be in the box. If it doesn't go to Richarlison, it means that Xavi can be there on the edge of the box or in the box, in and around, and then that pass, even on Spence's right foot, can cut back to Xavi, or even if it is on his weaker foot, it's a left foot pass. So a left foot pass is going to be much easier to deliver than a cross. And it's harder for defenders to actually defend when the ball is on the floor compared to when it's in the air. If it's in the air, you've got one, two, three, four, defenders here, and they're able to block those crosses coming in. But if it's on the floor, you can deliver them quicker, you can get to the byline, and that's in a way we can actually hurt teams. And I didn't see that from these players. And I just think that's a small tweak of intelligence where you're seeing Xavi no longer on the same line, but he's on a different line than what Spence is on, and it changes it up. Also, another dynamic that I saw, which I thought needs to be changed, is that Saar was too far away from Bentancur, meaning that when they did press, and you can see they had a 4-4-2, so let's just bring it all back, a 4-4-2 there. What we did see with Villarreal is Bentancur was often by himself, and if he was in this area, it also looked like this. So they would press in a 4-4-2. If it was on that ball side, that player would come over, he would come over, he would come over, he would come over. And so there was no, and then Saar would be behind this midfielder. And that pass, if it went in from Vicario into Bentancur, there was nowhere for him to find Saar because Saar's behind. He's not in his line of vision. Yeah. Richarlison has to drop in, but he wasn't dropping enough to combine. Then you would have no striker. But it would mean that Bergvall would have to be the number 9, or Xavi would have to be the number 9. So you're seeing players switch over, or if he's running in from misdirection to run in between the lines and beat that last line of defense from running in from deep. So that was also an issue when you saw Saar not connecting. And when Paulinho came on, that's when we went to a double pivot and we had more control. So it almost felt like we played with one midfielder as opposed to two, because everyone's blaming Bentancur. Oh, Bentancur. But it was the same issue with Paulinho. Paulinho was by himself, and then you surrounded by one, two, three, four, five. And in the Bournemouth game, we've noted that when Paulinho or Bentancur join the back three in this area, then this whole space would be vacated. And the reason why I said we was vacating that space is because sometimes Van der Ven will get in the ball and we want to risk it higher up. So Spence would push up, Xavi would push up, for example, and this would be Bergvall in that last game. But for Villarreal, Sarr would sometimes help and try to run up in this area. So you'd see these three higher up in these type of areas because they knew if we risked it in the area, whereas this pit here, if they lose a ball or if Bentancur loses the ball here when he's by himself, they've got a direct route to goal, if that makes sense. So then also, and the reason why the dynamics worked a bit better and we scored that goal with Kudos dropped into midfield, but Bergvall was now on that same line as Porro. So the ball first went in from Kudos. Kudos was able to combine with Porro, and Porro was able to hit that ball straight into Bergvall. He runs down the line and he finds Richarlison in that area. So because Kudos is able to go inside and on the outside, that gives a different option for Bergvall because Bergvall's also to be able to go inside and Bergvall's able to go on the outside. And all three of these players are right-footed. All of these players here are right-footed, apart from Van der Ven. So I think the dynamic with Sarr, I think it for him, works better as a right-sided eight, and Bergvall is comfortable in the left-sided eight. He's comfortable in that area. But we did see in the first half, left-sided eight for Bergvall, he wasn't very involved in that first game at West Ham. It was only in the second half we saw Bergvall come to life. And that's when he started to drift and started to combine with the three players. When those players don't combine, you don't see much happening. And I think that picture for Sarr on this area, he was a bit unfamiliar. And that's why we didn't see him in that game too much. So it's all about dynamics. It's all about relationships, as Frank said. These players linking up, knowing where they're going to be. Also, Spence wants the ball to feet. Xavi wants the ball to feet. So you need to have a player that wants to run in behind. And I think that's a bit of the difference of a Kudos wants it to feet, but the difference between Kudos and a Xavi is that because he's able to go on the inside and the outside, it makes a whole different dynamic in terms of passing angles. And it's all about triangles, guys. All about triangles, in my opinion. So that's what I thought. But I'm gonna go on to the next scene, and this is the actual game. And I put Bentancur. You can see Bentancur on the screen. He's making the back three, but there is the evidence that I was talking about. That particular area has been vacated. Why? And I think it's a tactic. You can see Sarr on the edge of the screen as well. So you can see Sarr there on my left hand side. He's going wide, and then you far right hand side, Porro, and then Kudos. He's not directly on the line. He's slightly off centered. He's on a diagonal angle, and then you can see Bergvall. He's the highest up player out of the midfield three, but they're no way near Bentancur, and our midfield is nowhere to be seen because I think Frank wants to risk it higher up. And I've said this on my other video, so without me repeating myself, I will move on this video. So the next slide I'm showing here is Spence is on the ball and he's playing that through ball, a forward pass into Xavi. And as you can see, Xavi's back is to goal, right? So the next scene, as he plays it in, you can see Villarreal pressed him. They've pressed him. He knows he can't turn because he's square. And also Spence hasn't made another angle. He hasn't made an angle. He stayed on that same line. He's not overlapping. And even if he was to overlap, that would leave that left back position empty. So it's down to you've got Richarlison coming over, trying to make a box. You can see Sarr trying to make an angle as well. So the next pass should be inside to Sarr, but obviously Sarr needs to break free. So maybe Sarr does a double movement. Same with Richarlison. Double movement meaning they try to lose their marker. They go one way and then they shift the other to create a little bit of space. But equally, you can see that both of these players are passing in straight lines and they're standing on the same line. That's the takeaway here. They're standing on the same line. As they're standing on that same line, as he gets that ball, that he's pressed by two players and then he's got nowhere to go. Here's the opposite side. You can see Porro and you can see Kudos trying to run in behind, and they're slightly more stretched on that angle. And you see how it works. Here you've got Mickey van der Ven on the left hand side. This is the second half, obviously, and you're seeing more space for Spence. So this is the same game, same. This is different. Sorry, this is the second half, but your doggy's not on. But you can see that Spence is hugging the touchline. He's not inverting. He's out wide. He's where he needs to be. Then the next slide, you're seeing that pass there, dinked over the top into Xavi. Xavi's at an angle, and now you're seeing Sarr running behind. He's the one that wants to run behind, and that's what I'm talking about. When they have 2v1 situations, that's what they're trying to create. Or if it's not 2v1, it's 3 versus 2. But they're trying to risk it wide in the wider areas rather than the central areas because there's an overload by the Villareal who press in the 4-4-2. Here you can see, let me take it back a little bit. Sorry. Just to show that next bit. You can see there, the problem here is he doesn't go over the top, but these two are standing on the same space. They're standing on the same line. So it's not easy to get that pass off. What Sarr needs to do is he needs to drop into that hole. He needs to start scanning, check their shoulders, and understand where they are on the pitch. So it makes a pass easier for Spence, who's on his right foot. If a doggy's there on his left foot, what you're saying is then, okay, the doggy has to beat two players because there's two players in front of him. So that's why I'm saying it's not as easy as just saying have a left footer on the left side and that solves all of our problems because he's going to go on the outside. It's not necessarily that simple. I think the movements of your midfielders, they need to be equally as intelligent, and that's going to help you build out from that mid block or the midfield area in the mid thirds, in my opinion. Next slide here. This is the actual goal. This is when I've said before, Kudos is inverting. He picks up the balls like a little midfield tussle. He kind of pirouettes, gets free from his player. He uses his dribbling skills to effect. And as he frees himself up, you can see I've actually circled I circled Sarr and Bentancur because they're actually close to each other. And that's what happens when you've got the two players close to each other with Kudos now swapping positions. That confuses their man-to-man press. And also because these two players are together, it allows Bergvall to be freer. It gives Porro license to roam on the outside and start to hug the touchline. And different dynamics happen. So it's all about being a little bit more fluid in that area in real time. And I've circled here Porro because Kudos is able to find him. As he finds him, he looks down the line and already Bergvall's on his bike. Bergvall's on his bike, runs down that channel. Bergvall knows what to do straight away. Fire that cross into the box. Next thing you know, we make our own luck. Richarlison's breathing down the neck of the defender and the goalkeeper. And unfortunately, the goalkeeper makes a mistake and it ends up in the back of the net. But this was some of the situations we're finding ourselves at the moment. And this is the next scene I've circled now. I've got Mickey van der Ven and I've got Xavi Simons there and I've got Spence hugging the touchline, but they're both on the same line. This cannot happen. They cannot be on the same line. One needs to be hugging the touchline, and if one's hugging the touchline, the other one needs to be in the half space. Which the half space is the next line across. So where the centre back is, as you can see, the full back, he's hugging the centre back. He needs to be where the centre back is. That's where he needs to be to find that area. And equally, Sarr's too far away. So what happens next? What happens next is you'll see Van der Ven, the ball's played back to him, and those players have gone further up the pitch. And so Van der Ven's gone long. He's gone long. He's tried to bypass that midfield. But as I said before, Xavi hasn't really got that explosive pace to run in behind to find that ball. And what happens is the ball goes out of play and it comes to nothing. Here, again, we're forcing that play. We're trying to play it a bit quicker and we're forcing passes. We're trying to bypass the midfield and do passes that aren't quite on. And that's when we lose the ball and we start to concede chances. And this happened all game where sloppy passing, bad decision making, we're trying to get it up the field really quick. You can see Sarr trying to wriggle away from his player. It's never going to get to him. There was 2-3 players there. It was a wrong pass, and that's when we've lost the ball. You can see Pepe on the run. I've circled him. There he is. Wins that ball, and then you know what happens next. A shot through Mickey van der Ven's legs. Boom. This is quickly just the passing maps just to finish off. and you can see it. It demonstrates what I'm talking about. Number 30 is Bentancur. He's all by himself. Look how far away he's from number 29, which is Sarr. Number 9 is Richarlison, and he wasn't allowing that ball to stick to him. That's why he was ineffective. He was taking too many touches before he laid it off. And by the time he lays it off, the pass is no longer on. As you can see, number 15, Bergval, he's also meant to be a midfielder. He's nowhere near Bentancur. So you can see Bentancur is by himself, 24, which is Spence, 7, which is Xavi, 15 and 20, which is Kudos, and Bergval. We're risking it in the wider areas. We're trying to double up in those areas. But for that to work, these players can't be standing on the same line. They need to interchange. They need to make those triangles. It can't be wide triangles. The triangles need to be a lot more sharper, more smaller to make that work. And I think with a few tweaks, I would suggest maybe having someone like Xavi play in, I wouldn't even say the 10, play Xavi where Pat Matasar is, and he will combine closer with the number 9. The number 9, Richarlison, could possibly drop out to the left, or you could have an Odobert who's more technical. He's not going to run in behind as much as a Richarlison, but at least with the usage of Odobert, it allows Simmons to be in that midfield role, and he will combine because he likes to drift to the left hand side naturally. So they will combine easier. A doggy, I'm not mad at that. You can have doggy overlap him with his left foot, and when he gets to the byline, then he's going to cut back as he always has. The doggy has never been a player, in my opinion, to he's never been a player to literally cross the ball into the box. That's not his forte. He always wants to cut back. So whoever's on that left hand side, whether it be Spence or a doggy, they need to get to the back line and then do the cut back or spray the ball across the 6-yard box. And it's about one of our players or two of our players, one hitting the front post, one hitting the back post, and one cutting back just outside the 6-yard box, ready to receive a ball to hit the ball into net. That's how we need to play when we're working through. But I think there needs to be work, as I said before, adaptation in the midfield as well. Not always going down the sides and not always trying to force those long balls, because a lot of teams are recognizing that we do like to play down that right hand side, and they're trying to clog up those areas to force us down the left. And Mickey van der Ven, even though he was quality at his passing last night, I just feel like he's better suited, in my opinion, ball carrying. That's more of his strength, rather than Romero's better at punching passes through the lines and finding those players further forward. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Just a quick one from your boy Ashmatic, Spurs Kings TV. We're back again. I might do some analysis on Brighton, and I might start looking at some left wingers to talk about as well, just to mix it up. But people, make sure you do like, you share, and you do subscribe to this video. Come on, you Spurs. See you on the other side. Peace.